The number one question I get as a real estate agent that specializes in new construction is some sort of variation of, are they a good builder? But here's the deal. When it comes to production home builders, the Toll Brothers, Stanley Martin, Lennar, the big guys, their default is to build you an average home. But can you get a good home or even a great home from a production builder? Absolutely. The key is to be a pain in their side to make sure they deliver a quality home that you deserve. And in this video, we are going to learn how to do the research that's required to make sure that you're actually working with a quote unquote good builder. Who your builder is often one of the most important decisions you'll make in this home buying process. And if you have the luxury to choose between different builders, that decision might be the most important decision you'll make. In some markets, you really don't have a choice. You're kind of stuck with whoever's building the house that you want to buy. But in the event you do have options, this is exactly what you need to do to make sure you're making the right decision. So let's start from the top. How do we research a builder? It's tough to sort of weave through all the marketing gimmicks of these builders. They tout all these awards, JD Power Associates, #1 builder, you name it. But all that stuff is meaningless. These are organizations and associations that are paid for by builders to get awards that they can then go to the consumer and say, hey, look, we're #1. Ignore it. Assume nothing. Be skeptical of everything they tell you. The key is asking the right questions and focusing on the right people to talk to. It's critically important to focus on substance when it comes to new builders and not the optics that they are portraying. If you're diligent, you found this channel or you have this book, you've probably spent hours researching builders and trying to determine if they're a good fit for you or not. But as you've seen, online research can often fall into two sort of categories. On one side of the spectrum, you have the builder telling you how great they are. On the other side of the spectrum, you have a Reddit user telling you what a terrible experience they had. And there's usually very little in between those two extremes. So how do we sort of cut through that noise and really sort of fundamentally understand who this builder is and what you could expect from them? The biggest takeaway from this video, and as it relates to researching builders, is that the builder's name really doesn't mean a whole lot. What really matters is the team on the ground in any given community. That goes from the sales team, the construction team, project managers, corporate. Those are the people who will determine the type of home that you end up with. The way a team works together ultimately determines what the home buying experience will feel like. The research should focus on the specific communities that you are interested in. The same builder in two different markets can be wildly different. And it almost always comes to who's running things locally. For example, if you have an unorganized project manager, that can mean delays in permits. That can mean less oversight of subcontractors. That can mean no quality control. Well, with the opposite, it means you'll get the opposite, a fantastic home on time. So back to the question, are they a good builder? Production builders, whether it's Lennar, Pulte, Stanley Martin, the Toll Brothers, they aren't crafting custom masterpieces here. And the difference between one and the other are usually much more subtle than you might think. They sort of all operate on the same spectrum. And it's not like really bad to really good. It's usually average to pretty good. These are corporations, they're built for efficiency and profit. It's not unusual that the same subcontractors, materials, and building processes look really similar amongst all these different builders. That doesn't mean you can't get a great home or a good home. It just means you need to set your expectations appropriately. Don't assume they're gonna give you a good or great home. Be prepared to hold them accountable and make sure they give you a good or great home. If you do get a chance to choose between different builders, the real deciding factor shouldn't be the builder's name. The reality is it's going to be more about the availability of homes, what lots are available, the pricing, the neighborhood, and what options are available to you at any given time. Sometimes one builder might frankly be better than the others, but in my experience, the value, location, and buyer's needs often outweigh the brand name. So how do you actually evaluate builders? Back to my core theme of focusing locally. I really want to find out locally about that neighborhood and their specific team. A fantastic resource that I've had a lot of success with are neighborhood Facebook groups. Folks who have moved in or who are under contract will often create Facebook groups where they can communicate directly, share feedback, voice concerns, and also just kind of a neighborhood thing. If you could find your way into one of those communities, it can be a wonderful resource. And if one doesn't exist yet for your neighborhood, start one. Next, physically spend time in the neighborhood. Get out of the car, walk around, meet neighbors, go different hours of the day, do the morning drive to work, do the afternoon drive home. It blows my mind how little time people spend in neighborhoods before they decide to spend millions of dollars to live there. You should spend as much time as possible there. There's so much you can learn there just from talking to neighbors, just to see how many contractors are working at any given time. Are these really robust, well-organized sites, or is it a ghost town half the time? And when possible, check their financial stability. What happened with this builder during the great crash of 2008? Some of the biggest builders in the world in 2008 walked away from communities half completed. They did not deliver on the amenities they promised. Trees weren't planted in the streetscapes. So if you're working with a builder who's maybe maybe new to a market or sales are really lackluster, that might be something to be concerned with. You want to make sure that they're in there for the long run. All right, so now let's talk about red flags. And there are dozens of red flags, and I have a lot more in this book than I'll go over in this video. But let's start with some of the big ones. Really vague contracts. If you are being rushed to sign a contract without fully understanding exactly what you're signing in terms of the sales price, when do you have a right to cancel the contract, when are all monies due, that is something you should be concerned with. Another red flag, overcomplicated incentives. Builders love marketing incentives. They always have and they always will. The truth about incentives, which I'll also sort of dive into in another video, is that it's just marketing. The builder will repackage incentives over and over again until they find one that actually works. So if a builder is really sort of hyper-focused on incentives and not so much focused on sort of the overall value and price of the home, that's a red flag. Poor communication. From the very first interaction with the sales team, if they're dodging your questions, if they don't take the time to sort of do a full cost estimate with you, if you're not getting clear and concise answers back to your inquiries, that's a red flag. It's up to the construction team. Messy construction sites often means messy work. If a construction site is disheveled, it usually means that there's not enough management on the ground. You want to know that upper management or someone is on the ground holding the tradesmen accountable. You don't want your house to be overexposed to the elements any longer than they need to be. And when you have a disheveled job site that's unorganized and poorly managed, it's usually a red flag. So make sure you spend a lot of time on job sites. You might get a flat tire or two, but it's totally worth it. Look, at the end of the day, no builder is perfect. But with the right research, the right accountability, the right preparation, you can set yourself up for success. And that's exactly why I created this series and why I wrote this book. Click the link in the description, get a copy of the book, like this video, subscribe to this channel, or send it to anyone else that might find this helpful in navigating the new construction process.